Okay, before we get started, I'm going to go ahead and just say this right flat out. I am not the biggest Flash fan by any stretch of the word. He is an okay character in my book, but after all of this shit with Ezra Miller and how he's been arrested, I'm going to call him he, okay? I realize that he, or Ezra Miller, has now referred to himself as they. I don't do that because for me that's too confusing, so I'm just going to call Ezra Miller a guy. So, excuse me for not being politically correct. So, with Ezra Miller being arrested multiple times, and now all but pretty much kidnapping somebody's 18-year-old daughter, Warner Brothers needs to do something. Flat out needs to do something. Because, you know, from what I've seen, you know, and heard, people really like the Flash movie that, from the test screenings and whatever that they've shown. But the movie is going to get more market and more money out of toys than it is out of movie tickets. And especially for people who are following all of this, like, you know, 3C Films and a handful of other people out there, they're not going to, you know, people like that are probably not going to spend the money to go see that film because of all this extra shit that's going on. The only reason why I would ever watch that movie is because of Michael Keaton Batman. That's it. You know, and that's just because Flash is not one of my favorite characters. Like, he's okay, but to me, the Flash was just like a human version of Sonic. And I realize the Flash came long before Sonic did, but I was introduced to Sonic the Hedgehog before I was introduced to the Flash. And, you know, the Flash, again, I don't mind the Flash. I love the CW's Flash show. That show is really good. But, again, wasn't one of my favorite characters in general. Just was not one of my favorite characters. So, now I've seen things on YouTube that says, you know, oh, you know, Ezra's going to be replaced as the Flash and whatnot. They can't reshoot the whole film because this guy plays 3 characters in this movie. So, you can't reshoot the whole freaking film considering they've spent hundreds of millions of dollars making the movie with this guy. And you can't reshoot it because it's not, you can't change actors because of that. So one thing, and I've seen this multiple times, one thing that they can do is just make this movie and drop it on HBO Max, or if they do take it to theaters, only have it be in theaters for a few weeks. You know, have it be there for like a week or two, and then take it out of the theater and never speak of it again. You know, and then like if this movie does get a sequel, which they're really talking about one already, they're probably going to replace the lead actor. Because you can't, and this is where I absolutely think Warner Brothers is going to lose a ton of money. If they do this, you know, I'm sure Access Hollywood and the news and everything else and stuff that people actually watch on a daily basis talk about this type of stuff. With, you know, Ezra getting arrested and blah, 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 blah. You know, people are going to know, people know about it. It's not like, oh, well, we're going to keep this on the down low and, you know, oh, you can't do anything because otherwise we can't release your movie. It's like, if Warner's not going to do anything about it. So I like Warner Brothers. Don't get me wrong. I like some of their older stuff that they do. DC-wise, I've lost all faith in them. Except for Black Adam. Black Adam does look really good, but that's only because I like The Rock. But like, I respect Warner Brothers for, you know, for their previous work. I don't, however, respect them right now because they're not doing anything about these particular problems. And I understand from a business point that, yeah, you can't really do much of anything because you have spent millions and millions and millions of dollars on a movie, on a specific movie that has this particular actor in the middle of, you know, as the main character or characters of the film. I understand that. But I also know that a movie, especially a superhero movie, is going to make a lot more money selling toys than it is in the actual theater. And you cannot market a movie or market toys for children glorifying these actions by said actor. It's like, you know, I understand why Warner Brothers isn't doing anything right now, because they have made that investment. They can't just cancel the project because then they're going to lose hundreds of millions of dollars. They can't recast Ezra because that would cost a lot of money that they've already spent on the movie with him. So it's like, you know, I understand why they're not doing anything right now. Hopefully, once the Flash has been released in the theaters or whatever they're going to do to it, hopefully once it's released, it's had its moment to shine, they'll recast Ezra. And hope, because there was a quote that I saw saying Ezra Miller is not Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man. You can't replace Robert Downey Jr. You can replace Ezra Miller. So, and it was the same. People were saying the same thing when Edward Norton got recasted from Incredible Hulk. They're like, oh, you know, Edward Norton was kind of just, to me, I don't mind the Incredible Hulk. Okay, that's to me, that's a very underrated Marvel film. I just wish they had done Mark Ruffalo the first time, like that director really wanted to do. That director wanted Mark Ruffalo as the character, as Bruce Banner. But they casted Edward Norton. Edward Norton was a hard actor to work with, from what I've heard, and wanted to do so many different things to the character that they're like, okay, well, we'll do this, and this for you, but otherwise you have to do this, and this for us. Edward Norton backed out of the Avengers, and then they got Mark Ruffalo to play the Hulk, and he's been Bruce Banner since. Really good choice, if you ask me. But, again, you can't replace Mark Ruffalo now because he's doing such a good job as Bruce. Robert Downey Jr. was a major controversial choice when they first made Iron Man, or when they first announced that he was going to play Iron Man, because of his backstory. Because of the 90s and stuff that he did back then. People are like, oh, really? You're going to get this guy to play Tony Stark? I'm like, okay, maybe he'll look the part. That movie comes out and it exceeds all expectations, and now you can't picture anybody else playing Iron Man better than Robert Downey Jr. But my point is, Ezra Miller is not Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man. He can be replaced. I'm sure Warner's going to replace him, or seriously consider replacing him, because you know Warner's listening to all of this shit. They see it all on the news, they see it all on the web, and they see all of this happening. They have to know that there's something seriously wrong with Ezra Miller. So, again, like I said, a lot of what makes, especially a superhero movie, the biggest financial parts that make movies are children buying toys, because the toy market makes a lot more money than the actual theater. So I've seen this before too. Apparently, Warner is going to go ahead and market the film with Ezra in the trailer footage and whatnot, and apparently they're going to just market it as if it's anything else. But if this movie does get a sequel, they're seriously going to have to consider recasting Ezra, because I understand being arrested for, like what they did, because, now they're saying that, oh, well, secondhand footage, or it says that he wasn't entirely in the wrong. Well, that's fine, okay? I understand that. But one of the things was picking up a chair and throwing it at a woman, giving her an 1.5 inch wide cut, and she refused medical treatment. Okay? That's strike one. That's something you don't do. Breaking into a couple's apartment or room or whatever, and basically threatening them, and then taking their wallets and some of their other possessions, that's strike two. That's something you don't do. But strike three, the biggest one that you shouldn't do, is the latest thing that they're doing, and it's like, oh, well, apparently the thing was that he was grooming some 18-year-old girl, and then, like, has now disappeared, basically kidnapping this kid. Like, that is, you can't, you can't do that. Like, the other two, okay, fine. If you have a major problem and whatnot, and you can't get help and I understand that part. But they still should have done something. Like, Warner should have done something the first time this happened. But now it's happened twice in Hawaii. Or no, 3 times in Hawaii, or so, however many times. I don't know how many times that happened. And now Ezra is completely missing, and from what I've heard, has this 18-year-old girl with him. That's when you draw the line. That's when you draw the line. And I would not be surprised at this point if Warner does not do anything. Because it really would not surprise me in the least if, because Warner has made such an investment on The Flash, if that they're not going to do much of anything right now. But then I'm sure once the movie's actually released and whatnot, then they'll be like, okay, this movie's doing really good in theaters or whatever we're putting it on. Okay, great. Now we're going to go ahead and do a second film, but because of all this, and this, we're going to have to find a better actor to do it, as we're just not going to work. So, and if I'm being completely honest, I never liked Ezra Miller as the Flash. I thought that was a really bad casting choice to begin with. I know there's a lot of people out there who think that was one of the best choices they did. But I hated that character in Batman vs. Superman because it did make sense. And then when I watched the Justice League, it just completely proved I was right, and I absolutely hated Ezra Miller as the Flash in Justice League. I don't know what it was about him I didn't like. I just didn't think he was the proper casting choice for the movie. I still have yet to see the Zack Snyder's version of Justice League, because I'm a strong believer that it does not matter what version of the movie you release, it cannot save a bad film. And I've heard that, oh, well, Zack Snyder's cut is so much better than the first one, and blah 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 blah, and there's so many other scenes. I understand that. But I'm a firm believer that it does not matter what version of the movie you make, it cannot save what is a bad film. A perfect example of this is Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers. For those of you who have not seen that, that was one of the first movies to have a director's cut and a producer's cut, or theatrical cut, or whatever. That was one of the first films that had 2 different cuts. The theatrical cut was the one that was the most graphic and, extreme blood and everything else, while the director's cut was actually more toned down and actually explained the story a little bit better. Neither version of the film is good. And, again, bad writing, bad storytelling. Granted, that was a much different situation because they're like, hey, we're going to introduce all this, and we pity whoever has to take up the franchise next. This is not that case. They're like, if I'm not mistaken, the whole story was like they had Zack Snyder shot like 20% or I think they said 50% of the movie, and it had like a family crisis and it had to go, and then they got Josh Whedon to direct the rest of the film, and like he completely changed half of the film and like made it so much worse. That's what I heard. I don't know if that's entirely accurate. But long story short, I don't mind the Flash. He's not one of my favorite characters. But as of right now, I'm pissed off with Warner because they seriously should have done something the first time something like this happened. They should have been on it. This is going to be a bad analogy, but like bees on honey. They should have been on that particular subject like bees on honey when it first happened. And then kind of gone from there. You know, I realize that Ezra needs like, you know, therapy or counseling or whatever to make him not such an aggressive person. There's ways to treat that. But once you have 3 massive strikes and they're all pretty much attacking women, that's when you draw the line. It's like baseball. 3 strikes, you're out. First strike, okay, fine. You know, that's horrible, but it's still something that you can fix. Second strike, no one got hurt, luckily this time, but still something that should never happen. Third strike, essentially kidnapping. That should never happen at all. That shouldn't even be a thought. And I guarantee once this movie comes out and once Fantastic Beasts 3 comes out, Ezra Miller's career is over. Because no studio is going to want to work with somebody who acts like this for no reason. You know, and there may be a really good reason. We don't know what's going on in Ezra Miller's life. We don't know what, you know, anything about him. At least I don't know anything about him. But, like, there's no telling what's going on in his personal life. So there may be, through his eyes, he may have a very valuable or valid reason on acting this way. But you can't hire somebody who does stuff like this and just be like, well, brush it off, you'll be fine. No. And before anybody says anything, yes, I'm 100% aware that Robert Downey Jr. probably did worse things than what Ezra Miller's done. At least that's what I've been told. I've never actually gotten too deep into it because I like Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man. But I know Robert had his fair share of bad stuff happen when, you know, he was first getting off the ground. You know, and I understand that, and now he's like a model citizen. He at least was willing to get help. So far, Ezra's not reaching out to anybody to get help. So, you know, with Robert Downey Jr., like, he knew he was doing this stuff. He knew it was not good for him. He went and sought help and got help. And now he's a model citizen because he got help. This is a completely different story. So, let me know what you guys think. If you guys have been following this probably deeper than I am, let me know if I messed anything up or missed something. But let me know what you guys think. Do you think Warner Brothers is making the right decision by pretty much not doing anything right now, and they're definitely going to do something once the movie's actually released? Or do you think they should have just said, you know what, we're going to literally throw the hammer down and say, you know what, you're done. Your movie's done, we're done, you could go off and do something else, and the hell with you, essentially. So, let me know what you guys think, and I will catch you guys all later. Real slight quick update. I'm going to try to do, I was working on a stop motion, but it didn't work out, so I scrapped it. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys got a little bit of insight in this video, and I'll catch you guys all later. Bye.